Thanks for checking out Scotty's Hobbies. Today we're going to be replacing the front pads and rotors on this 2010 Nissan Cube. This will be the same, if not very similar, to other makes and models. In the description, I will do my best to give you the best list of vehicles that this video will help you on. First, we're getting started on this video real quick. You can see I'm already turning the wheel to the driver's side. I took the wheel off. I'm using a 14 millimeter 6-point socket to remove the caliper right here. Everything, all the tools, parts, and everything, there will be links in the description below to purchase those, and I should be updating my website fairly soon to be able to directly sell products to you, parts and tools directly to you. So make sure you take the time and click around in the description, please. And also, make sure you comment below with the year, make, model, engine size of the vehicle that this video helped you on, and also maybe the problem that you were chasing and fixed using this video. But again, 2010 Nissan Cube, removing the caliper, 14 millimeter right here. At the end of the video, we will go over torque specs, and I will do my best to give you some pointers and tips. Before you go much further, make sure you release the pressure or loosen your cap on your oil reservoir for your brake system, your brake fluid reservoir. That's when we get ready to compress the caliper right here. We have somewhere for the fluid to go and the pressure to go so we don't blow any seals somewhere and cause more work for us. Take a look at everything on your brakes when you take it apart. Make sure you put your wear pins or your wear shims in the right area when you do your reinstallation process. You can see I'm going to use the old pad right here to compress the caliper. This caliper piston compressor, there will be a link in the description below for one if you do need one. It's fairly cheap. It's really easy. This gets most of the jobs done, especially when you're dealing with a single piston system like this. They do make other variations, so if you have a different style, that'll help you out too. Or if you see one on the shelf and they don't have this one when you're buying one, go ahead and pick up a different one, but this is the easiest, cheapest one. Links in the description below to purchase them. When you are buying brake parts, make sure you get the best parts you can, especially if you're doing your own BJ. You want to get ceramic parts and pads, ceramic pads, and make sure you get pads with the hardware kit. We'll go over that further on in the video. Here, I'm using a bungee cord to hold the caliper up. I don't want to leave the caliper dangling on the brake line right there. That could give you more problems. You could pinch the line, break it, and it just gives you more work. So make sure you do something to hold the caliper up there. Now we're going to remove the caliper bracket. This is going to be a 21 millimeter, but also a 13/16 seem to fit for me as well. The 21 should be the proper fit though. Again, when we do the reinstallation process on this, I will go over torque specs with you, so stay tuned till the very end. And if you know anybody that is working on their own vehicles, such as maintaining their vehicle, doing brakes, air filters, PCV, cabin air filters, all that type of stuff, make sure you tell them about me. Here I'm installing a lug nut onto the rotor. It holds everything in place and makes the de-assembly process or the unassembly process much easier. So make sure you put that lug nut on there, holds that brake rotor nice and flat so you don't have any problems getting your caliper bracket off right here. Set these bolts off to the side, make sure you don't lose them, damage them somehow. Make sure that they're just there. Make it easy for you. I usually keep a little tray around and I put all my nuts and bolts in there when I'm disassembling something. Now that we got the caliper bracket off, go ahead and remove the rotor. Just take that lug nut off that we were using for the disassembly process. Set everything off to the side. Take a look at the hub assembly, your ball joints, your CV shaft, everything while you're here. If there's any other problems, most of that stuff would be easy to replace. You've got most of the job done. So if you see something else at this point, go ahead and take care of that as well. Install the new rotor. And again, use a lug nut or two to hold the rotor in place when you're doing the reassembly process. It makes it so much easier so everything's not wiggling around on you. I usually use one lug nut, but in this case, I use two. So it's up to you. It's easier if you have one on there. A little tip of the trade. Something very small. I bet everybody does it. But if you have any tips or tricks or anything like that, make sure you comment below and let us know too. There might be something I'm forgetting, or you might be able to teach somebody that I just didn't. So we're going to go ahead and put new hardware onto this brake caliper bracket. When you do get your brakes, make sure, like I said, you have a new hardware kit that's included. I always replace it if possible. I'm cleaning off the sliders right here. I'm going to take one off, each one off, one at a time. And I'm going to use some synthetic brake grease that's meant for calipers and high heat to lube these up. pretty liberal on it. When I stick the slider back into the slider hole, I'm going to make sure it's moving freely in and out. I have nothing that's keeping it from moving, and there's no debris inside there. If I get any extra grease coming out of the boot, I will wipe it off like that. Also, while you're doing this, inspect the boots, because sometimes your boots get worn out. They get hot and whatnot. I'm not sure, but they will get damaged, and you do need to replace them sometimes. In this case, these boots were just fine. But if you do need to replace them, now's the time to do it. Don't want to do this job twice. Or maybe when you're purchasing brakes, you might want to purchase a boot kit as well for the caliper, just in case you need to replace it. It's always better to replace it, have one on the side, rather than getting somewhere and being stuck and maybe doing this at night and they're not even open. So that might help you out right there. Install this slider. Make sure it moves freely in and out. If your slider pins are not properly lubricated, it can cause the caliper to compress onto the brake pads in a non-flat fashion. So it could hit one side of the brake pad before the other side of the brake pad, and you'll get uneven wear on the pads and the rotor. So you want to make sure everything moves freely, no debris anywhere, and just make sure it's done right. You always want to do the best BJ you can when you're doing a BJ, you know? A brake job. A BJ, brake job, you get it? Install your new hardware kit. If you have to reuse the old stuff, you got to do what you got to do. But I always replace my brake hardware kit when I can. Make sure it's all pressed in. You don't want anything hanging over that's going to rub on the rotor. So just make sure it's installed properly. You can see that one was a little bit hard for me to get off, but got to do what you got to do. If you have like a pulsating brake pedal, when you hit the brakes and you get a little bit of vibration on the brake pedal, that's a good indication that your rotors are bad, just so you know. And let's say you were driving down the road and you just get a vibration in the steering wheel, that's probably an indication that your tires or balance is bad, depending on what you're trying to chase. So hopefully that might help you out. Or if you're having a problem that you're trying to chase and you think it's something to do with your brakes, make sure you comment below and ask away. Might be something I might be able to help you with, or maybe somebody else in the community can help you with. Here we're installing both of your brake caliper bracket bolts. These are going to be the 21 millimeter or a 13/16. Since we're working on a foreign vehicle, this will probably be a 21 millimeter. I'm going to torque this one down. It's a really light torque spec compared to most brake caliper brackets, especially being on the front. I'm using a 3/8 torque wrench, and I'm only going to torque this bolt down to 62 foot-pounds. Seems very light for me, but it's a very small brake system, so that's what I found on All Data, I believe I did, or Haynes as the two places I try to get my information from. So 62 foot-pounds. I'm going to go to 1 click. Sometimes I go to 2, but given that this is a really weak bolt, I feel like since it's only 62 foot-pounds, only 1 click. Now make sure you reinstall your brake pads in the same fashion or same order that you took them off. So in this case, the wear indicator was on the top of the inboard and the outboard pads. You could flip them and they could be on the bottom. But on this one, the silencers, they fold into your wear indicator on your hard. Some people like to use grease on the back of their pads. I don't if the silencer shim is on there, but more power to you if you'd like to do that. And if you prefer to do it or have a reason why, please make sure you let me know in the comments below, because I might be able to learn something if I'm missing a good way to do a proper BJ. So let me know as well. Get both your brake pads on. Go ahead and snatch your caliper up off of your strut. Don't forget to get your bungee cord or whatever you're using to hold your caliper up there. You don't want to leave it up there when you finish your brake job. Now we're going to replace or install the brake caliper bolts into the slider. These are going to be 14 millimeter 6-point, or you're going to use a 6-point socket on these 14 millimeter bolts. If your caliper won't slide on easily right here, you might want to double check that your caliper is completely, your caliper piston is completely depressed into the housing. If it's not, it's going to rub on the brake pads right here and not easily slide on. And you might move that slider shim on the backside of your pad. So make sure when you're putting it on, it freely slides on. When you get done with your brake job, you want to pump your brake pads too, so you get the good pressure on them. I'm going to torque these 14 millimeter bolts down to 20 foot-pounds, which is super, super light. But that's the torque spec, and it's not a super abnormal torque spec. So 20 foot-pounds on this 14 millimeter using my 3/8 torque wrench. that's pretty much it for the brake job down here. You're going to take off your lug nuts that you're using for the assembly process so you get the wheel on. And before you go too far, like I said, you're going to pump the brake pedal. I like to pump it 3 times. The first time that you pump it, you're going to feel it's going to be very easy to push to the floor, all the way to the floor. And then by the 3rd pump, it's going to be nice and stiff. Also, don't forget to tighten the cap on your fluid reservoir or your brake fluid reservoir. Other than that, that's it. This brake job is super easy, super fast. It could be relatively cheap. If you have any questions, make sure you comment below. I do like to torque down all of my lug nuts using a torque wrench after I use my torque stick to install the lug nuts. Well, finger tight first, and then my torque stick, and then my torque wrench. This one I'm torquing down to 105 foot-pounds, I believe it is. But always make sure you torque everything down when possible. Like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you guys on the next hopefully helpful video. And make sure you tell everybody about me, please. Thanks for watching.